Marcus Aurelius woke up every morning before dawn and did something that sounds completely backwards for productivity. While everyone around him was rushing into action, making lists, trying to get ahead, he sat still and deliberately imagined everything going wrong. His empire crumbling, his health failing, his closest allies betraying him. And this practice, this dark mental ritual that most productivity gurus would call toxic negativity, is exactly what made him the most effective leader in Roman history. You've been told that morning routines are about affirmations, gratitude journals, and pumping yourself up, but the Stoics knew something different, something that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. The morning doesn't determine your day. How you prepare your mind in the morning determines everything. Welcome to Stoic Valor, where we strip away the fluff and get to what actually transforms your life. We're not here to sell you feel-good morning routines that make you productive for a week and then fade. We're here to show you the ancient practices that have been tested for 2,000 years and still work today. If you're ready to build a morning routine that doesn't just make you busy, but makes you genuinely effective, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Picture Rome, around 170 AD. Marcus Aurelius is the most powerful man on earth. He controls an empire that spans 3 continents. Every decision he makes affects millions of lives. And every morning, he wakes up to chaos. Generals demanding attention, senators plotting against him, barbarians at the borders, plagues spreading through cities, family drama, political intrigue, the weight of an empire on his shoulders, and he can't afford to be scattered, reactive, or overwhelmed. So he developed a morning routine. But it wasn't what you think. He didn't wake up and immediately check messages from his advisors. He didn't rush into action. He didn't make lists of tasks. He did something that sounds almost strange for a man in his position. He sat with himself, in silence, and he wrote, not plans, not strategies, philosophy. He reminded himself of principles. He prepared his mind for the inevitable difficulties of the day. He visualized challenges before they happened. And this practice, this mental preparation, is what made him capable of leading an empire while staying internally calm. The routine wasn't about doing more, it was about being ready for anything. Here's what Marcus understood that changes everything about how you approach your morning. Your day isn't determined by your to-do list. It's determined by your mental state. You can have the perfect schedule, the perfect tasks, the perfect plan, and if your mind isn't prepared, you'll collapse at the first obstacle. You'll be reactive instead of strategic. You'll be emotional instead of rational. You'll be scattered instead of focused. The morning routine isn't about productivity tactics. It's about mental fortification. It's about building the internal strength that allows you to execute regardless of what the day throws at you. Think about your typical morning. You probably wake up, immediately check your phone, see messages and notifications, and your nervous system is already activated before you're even out of bed. You're reacting before you've decided what you're responding to. You're in defense mode before you've established what you're defending. And then you wonder why the whole day feels chaotic, why you're constantly putting out fires, why you're exhausted by noon. It's not because you're not working hard. It's because you started the day from a position of weakness instead of strength. You handed control to external stimuli instead of establishing internal control first. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his meditations that most people read but don't actually absorb. He wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. Now read that carefully. He's not being pessimistic. He's being prepared. He's mentally rehearsing difficulty so that when it shows up, and it always shows up, he's not surprised. He's not reactive. He's ready. That's the difference between a morning routine that makes you busy and a morning routine that makes you effective. You know that feeling when something unexpected ruins your entire day? When one email, one conversation, one problem completely derails you. That happens because you started the day unprepared. You assumed things would go smoothly. You expected cooperation. You hoped for ease. And reality delivered difficulty, and you weren't ready. So you collapsed emotionally, wasted energy on frustration, and spent the rest of the day recovering instead of executing. Marcus never had that problem, not because his days were easy. His days were objectively harder than anything you'll ever face. But because his morning routine prepared him for difficulty, expected it, welcomed it. Even Robin Sharma writes about this in the 5 a.m. Club, when he discusses how the first hour of your day determines the quality of your entire day. But the principle goes much deeper than just waking early. It's about what you do in that first hour. Most people use it to consume news, social media, messages. They're inputting before they've established output. They're reacting before they've decided what they stand for. The Stoic does the opposite. The first hour is sacred, protected, used exclusively for internal preparation, for reminding yourself of your principles, for visualizing challenges, for establishing the mental frame that will carry you through chaos. But here's where most people get this catastrophically wrong. They think morning routines are about addition, adding more practices, more habits. more things to do. Wake up earlier, meditate, journal, exercise, read, affirmations, gratitude, cold shower, and they're exhausted before the day even starts. That's not what Marcus did. His routine was about subtraction, about stripping away everything except what actually fortifies the mind. He didn't do 10 things. He did 3 things, maybe 4, and he did them deeply. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth. And those few practices created the mental foundation that allowed him to rule an empire. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits when he discusses how simplicity is the key to sustainability. You don't need a 2-hour morning routine with 17 different practices. You need 3 core practices that you do consistently, that actually change your mental state, that prepare you for reality instead of distracting you with feel-good activities that don't translate to actual effectiveness. And what were Marcus's core practices? Mental rehearsal of difficulty, remembering his principles, and journaling to clarify his thinking. That's it. Simple, sustainable, powerful. Now here's where it gets interesting. Modern neuroscience has discovered something the Stoics knew 2,000 years ago. Your brain has something called the reticular activating system. It's a filter that determines what you pay attention to and what you ignore. And here's the key. It's programmable. What you focus on in the morning, what you visualize, what you remind yourself of, that programs your RAS for the entire day. If you start the day by consuming news and social media, your RAS is programmed to see problems, threats, and distractions. If you start the day by reminding yourself of your principles and visualizing challenges, your RAS is programmed to see opportunities, solutions, and what you can control. Same day, different filter. Different outcomes. Marcus understood this intuitively. He knew that the first thoughts of the day set the tone for everything that follows. So he was meticulous about what he allowed into his mind first thing in the morning. Not news, not other people's agendas, not distractions. His own philosophy, his own principles, his own preparation, and that gave him an enormous advantage over everyone around him who woke up reactive, scattered, and controlled by external circumstances. He controlled his internal state first, and from that position of internal strength, he could handle anything the external world threw at him. Hold that thought, because what I'm about to share changes everything. The specific practices that Marcus used, the exact routine, it's all documented in his meditations. But most people read it as philosophy and miss that it's actually a manual, a step-by-step guide to mental preparation that you can use starting tomorrow morning. But knowing this changes nothing if you don't know how to apply it. And the way you apply it is not what you think. So how do you actually do this? How do you build a morning routine based on Stoic principles instead of modern productivity theater? Let me break down Marcus Aurelius' exact morning practice and how you implement it today. Because there's a massive difference between reading about a routine and actually living it. And that difference determines whether you transform your productivity or just collect more information you never use. The first practice Marcus did every single morning was what the Stoics called premeditatio, the premeditation of evils. Sit with that for a second. Before doing anything else, before making any decisions, before taking any actions, he deliberately imagined everything going wrong. In vivid detail, his health failing, his empire collapsing, his plans being thwarted, his enemies succeeding, death coming for him. And this wasn't morbid pessimism, this was strategic preparation. He was mentally rehearsing difficulty so that when it showed up in reality, his nervous system wouldn't spike. He'd already been there in his mind. He was prepared. Here's how you do this today. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything else, sit for 5 minutes and imagine your day going badly, vividly. That meeting you have, imagine it going terribly. People disagreeing with you. Your ideas being rejected. That project you're working on. Imagine obstacles, delays, failures. That person you're counting on. Imagine them letting you down. And as you imagine these scenarios, notice what happens in your body. There's probably resistance. Your mind wants to push these thoughts away. That resistance is exactly why you need this practice. You're afraid of difficulty, and that fear makes you fragile. But here's what happens when you do this consistently. After a week, maybe 2, something shifts. The scenarios you imagined stop scaring you. You face them mentally so many times that they lose their power. And when difficulties actually show up in your day, and they will, you're not shocked. You're not reactive. You're not emotionally derailed. You're calm. You expected this. You prepared for this. And from that calm, you can respond strategically instead of reacting emotionally. That's the advantage. That's why Marcus could face catastrophic challenges and remain internally stable. He rehearsed catastrophe every morning until it became familiar instead of terrifying. The second practice is what Marcus called remembering your principles. Every morning he would write out or recite the core philosophical principles that he lived by. Things like, you don't control what happens to you, only how you respond. Or, other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Or, death can come at any moment, so live accordingly. These aren't affirmations, they're not positive thinking. They're reminders of reality, hard truths that most people avoid. And by confronting these truths first thing in the morning, Marcus was calibrating his mind to reality. Instead of living in comfortable delusions that would shatter under pressure, here's your version. Write down 3 core principles that you actually believe in, not things that sound good. Things that are true, things like, most things are outside my control, and that's okay. Or, discomfort is temporary, but regret from not trying lasts forever. Or, I will die someday, so what I do today matters. And every morning, before you start your day, read these out loud if possible. Let them sink in. Let them recalibrate your perspective, and watch what happens. The things that used to bother you, the small annoyances, the petty frustrations, they start to lose their power, because you've reminded yourself of what actually matters. The third practice is journaling, but not the kind of journaling you've been sold. Marcus didn't journal about gratitude, though gratitude has its place. He didn't journal about his feelings, though self-awareness matters. He journaled to clarify his thinking. He asked himself questions. What is within my control today? What challenges am I likely to face? How do I want to respond? What would the wise version of me do? And by writing these questions and answering them, he was essentially debugging his own thinking before the day started. He was identifying potential errors in judgment before they cost him. Here's how this works for you. Get a notebook, not your phone. A physical notebook, and every morning, write for 5 to 10 minutes, not a diary entry. Strategic questions. What's the most important thing I need to accomplish today? What obstacles might show up? How will I respond when things don't go as planned? What does the best version of me look like today? And here's the key. You're not just writing questions. You're answering them. You're thinking through your day before you're in the middle of it. Reactive and emotional. You're planning your responses ahead of time. And that advanced preparation is what separates people who execute consistently from people who collapse under pressure. Now, what I'm about to share is counterintuitive, but essential. Most morning routines are designed to pump you up, get you excited, energized, ready to conquer the day. And there's nothing wrong with energy, but the Stoic routine does something different. It calms you down, it grounds you, it prepares you for reality, not for a fantasy version of the day where everything goes perfectly. And here's why that's more effective. When you're pumped up and reality delivers difficulty, you crash. The gap between expectation and reality creates frustration. But when you're grounded and reality delivers difficulty, you're ready. There's no gap. You expected this. And you respond from calm instead of crashing from hype. Let me give you the complete routine, step by step, exactly how you'd implement this tomorrow. You wake up, do not check your phone. This is non-negotiable. The first input into your brain cannot be other people's agendas, news, or notifications. First, sit in silence for 3 minutes. Just breathe. Don't meditate if that word carries baggage. Just sit, be present. Let your nervous system calm. Second, practice premeditatio malorum for 5 minutes. Imagine your day going badly, vividly. Feel the discomfort. Third, read or recite your core principles. 3 to 5 statements that ground you in reality. This takes 2 minutes. Fourth, journal your strategic questions for 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. Total time, 15 to 20 minutes. Not 2 hours. Not some elaborate ritual. 15 minutes that prepare your mind for reality. But there's a problem most people don't see coming. You'll start this routine, feel great for a few days, and then life will get busy. You'll skip a day, then another, and within a week, you're back to your old pattern of waking up reactive. This is where most people fail. Not because the routine doesn't work, because they don't have a system to maintain it. James Clear talks about this extensively. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So here's the system. First, make it easier to do the routine than not to do it. Put your journal next to your bed. Make your phone hard to access. Create friction for bad habits and ease for good ones. Second, track it, not obsessively, but mark an X on a calendar every day you do the routine. The visual streak becomes motivation. You don't want to break the chain. Third, and this is crucial, start smaller than you think you need to. Don't commit to 20 minutes if you're not sure you can sustain it. Commit to 5, just premeditation. That's it. Build the habit of doing something, anything, before you build the habit of doing everything. You can always expand later, but if you start too big and fail, you're back to zero. Start small, be consistent, expand gradually. If this is hitting different, if you're realizing that your current morning routine is just productivity theater that doesn't actually prepare you for reality, then subscribe to Stoic Valor, because we're not building an audience here. We're building a community of people who do the actual work of transformation instead of just consuming content about it. We're just getting started. And what we're about to explore will show you that this isn't just theory. This is how real people, in the real world, in the modern age, have transformed their productivity by transforming their mornings. But does this actually work in the real world? When you're not an emperor but a regular person with regular problems? Let me show you. But does this actually work when you're not ruling an empire but trying to manage a career, relationships, and life in the 21st century? When you're dealing with notifications, deadlines, and digital chaos that Marcus never faced? Let me show you what happens when real people apply this ancient routine to modern life. Because philosophy is beautiful, but transformation happens in reality, not in theory. There was a man I'll call Jason, tech executive, high-pressure job, always behind, always overwhelmed. His mornings were chaos. Wake up to an alarm he'd hit snooze on 3 times. Immediately check email in bed. See something urgent? Anxiety spike. Rush through a shower, grab coffee. Sit in traffic while listening to news that made him angry, and arrive at work already drained. And he'd wonder why he was always reactive, always putting out fires, never getting ahead of anything. He was productive in the sense that he was busy, but he wasn't effective. Everything felt hard, everything felt urgent, and he was burning out. He came across Marcus Aurelius during a particularly overwhelming period, specifically the Meditations, and one passage stopped him. Marcus wrote about preparing your mind before the day starts, about expecting difficulty instead of being surprised by it. Jason realized he'd been doing the opposite. He was starting every day unprepared, hoping things would be easy, and then being devastated when they weren't. So he tried the Stoic morning routine, just the basics. 5 minutes of imagining his day going badly, 2 minutes reminding himself of his principles, 5 minutes journaling his strategy for the day. 12 minutes total. Here's what happened. First few days were uncomfortable. His mind resisted imagining difficulty. It felt negative, but he pushed through, and by the end of the first week, something shifted. He woke up to the same chaos, the same urgent emails, the same problems, but he wasn't surprised. He'd already imagined things going wrong. He'd already decided how he'd respond, and instead of reacting emotionally, he responded strategically. His productivity didn't just improve, it multiplied, not because he was working more hours, because he was working from a grounded mental state instead of a reactive one. 6 months later, he told me the routine changed everything, not just his work, his entire life. Contrast this with another case. A woman who tried morning routines constantly, every productivity trend, waking at 5 a.m. meditation apps, gratitude journals, cold showers, affirmations. She'd start each new routine with enthusiasm, feel great for a few days, and then it would fade, and she'd move to the next thing, never understanding why nothing stuck. The problem wasn't her discipline. The problem was the routines she was trying were designed to make her feel good, not to prepare her for reality. They were positive thinking, not strategic thinking. And when reality delivered difficulty, which it always does, the good feelings evaporated and the routine felt useless. Then she found Stoic philosophy, specifically Seneca's letters about morning preparation, and she tried something different. Instead of trying to feel good, she tried to be prepared. Imagining difficulties, remembering harsh truths, and here's what she discovered. It wasn't comfortable. It didn't give her the dopamine hit that affirmations did. But it worked. It actually prepared her for the day. And when difficulties showed up, she was ready. The routine stuck because it was useful, not because it felt good. And usefulness, she realized, is far more motivating long-term than temporary good feelings. Ryan Holiday documents this pattern, and the obstacle is the way. The people who transform their productivity and their lives aren't the ones with the most elaborate morning routines. They're the ones with the most realistic morning routines. The ones who prepare for difficulty instead of hoping for ease. The ones who ground themselves in principles instead of pumping themselves up with hype. The same amount of time invested, completely different outcomes. Because one approach aligns with reality, the other fights against it. Let me give you another case. An entrepreneur, building a startup, constantly stressed about funding, growth, competition. His mornings were spent checking metrics, looking at competitor moves, spiraling into worry about things he couldn't control, and his productivity suffered. Not because he wasn't smart, because his mental state was chaos. He was starting every day in fight or flight mode. Everything felt like a crisis. He couldn't think strategically because he was always reacting tactically. He implemented the Physical Stoic morning routine with one specific focus, the dichotomy of control. Every morning, as part of his journaling, he'd write 2 columns. Things he controlled today, things he didn't. And he committed to spending 0 mental energy on the second column. He didn't control investors' decisions. He didn't control the market. He didn't control competitors. But he controlled his effort, his learning, his outreach, his product quality. And by clarifying that every morning, he stopped bleeding energy into things he couldn't influence. His productivity didn't just improve, it focused. He started making real progress on what mattered, instead of spinning his wheels on what didn't. Here's what he told me 12 months later. The routine didn't make me work harder. It made me work smarter. I was always busy before. Now I'm effective. There's a massive difference. That's the Stoic advantage. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters from a mental state that allows you to actually execute. Most people are busy, but scattered. The Stoic is focused and effective. Same hours in the day, different quality of output, all because of 15 minutes in the morning spent preparing the mind, instead of immediately reacting to the world. Now, let's talk about someone who applied the journaling practice specifically. Writer, creative work, constantly blocked. She'd wake up, sit at her computer, stare at a blank page, feel anxious, check social media to avoid the discomfort, waste hours, and then hate herself for being unproductive. Classic creative resistance. And no amount of willpower was fixing it. Why? Because she was trying to create from an anxious, scattered mental state. And creativity doesn't flow from anxiety. It flows from calm clarity. She started the Stoic journaling practice with one twist. Every morning, before attempting creative work, she'd write 3 questions. What am I afraid of today? What's actually in my control? What would I create if I knew I couldn't fail? And by externalizing her fears, clarifying her control, and giving herself permission to create badly, she bypassed the resistance. The blank page stopped being terrifying. It became a space for exploration. Her productivity as a writer multiplied, not because she had more time, because she approached the work from a prepared mental state, instead of an anxious one. Mark Manson writes about this in The Subtle Art when he talks about how accepting negative possibilities paradoxically makes you more capable of positive outcomes. The writer who was afraid of writing badly and tried to avoid that fear stayed blocked. The writer who imagined writing badly every morning and accepted it as possibility became prolific. Same person, different mental preparation, different results. That's what the Stoic morning routine does. It doesn't eliminate difficulty, it prepares you for difficulty. And preparation is the difference between collapsing and executing. One more case, because this shows the full picture. A single parent, working full-time, raising kids, completely overwhelmed. Mornings were survival mode. Kids' breakfast, getting everyone ready, rush to work. Already exhausted, no time for any routine. She thought morning routines were for people with privilege and time, and she was right about elaborate 2-hour rituals. But the Stoic routine, 15 minutes. She woke up 15 minutes earlier, that's it. And in those 15 minutes, she did the core practices. Imagined her day going badly, kids having meltdowns, work crisis, everything breaking. Reminded herself of her principle, I can only control my response. Journaled quickly, what matters most today. And those 15 minutes changed everything. Not because her circumstances got easier. They didn't, but because she stopped being surprised by difficulty. She stopped emotionally collapsing when things went wrong. She responded instead of reacting. And her kids noticed. Her coworkers noticed. She noticed. She was the same person in the same difficult circumstances. But her internal state was different. Grounded instead of chaotic. Prepared instead of surprised. And that internal shift changed her external effectiveness. These aren't special people. They're regular people who made one decision, to prepare their mind before facing their day. The same decision you can make right now. So the question becomes, are you ready to stop doing morning routines that make you feel good temporarily, and start doing the routine that makes you genuinely effective permanently? Remember what we started with? Marcus Aurelius, waking up before dawn and doing something that sounds backwards, imagining everything going wrong. Now you understand why. He wasn't being negative, he was being strategic. He was preparing his mind for reality instead of hoping for fantasy. And that preparation is what made him capable of extraordinary effectiveness under extraordinary pressure. The morning routine isn't about productivity hacks, it's about mental preparation. And mental preparation determines everything. Let me bring this full circle. What Marcus discovered, what every Stoic practiced, what modern neuroscience now confirms, is devastatingly simple. Your morning determines your mental state. Your mental state determines your decisions. Your decisions determine your outcomes. Most people try to change their outcomes while keeping the same mental state. They want different results from the same scattered, reactive, unprepared mind. And they wonder why nothing changes. The Stoic changes the mind first, and the outcomes change as a natural consequence. But here's the part that most people resist. This isn't about adding another thing to your already overwhelming schedule. This is about subtracting, about protecting the first 15 minutes of your day from everything else. No phone, no email, no news, no other people's agendas. Just you and your mind, preparing, grounding, clarifying. And from that 15 minutes of preparation, you get hours of effectiveness. The return on investment is absurd, but most people won't do it. Why? Because it requires discipline. It requires saying no to the immediate pull of notifications, and yes to the delayed benefit of preparation. So here's what you need to ask yourself right now. What is your morning currently? Be honest. Do you wake up and immediately check your phone? Do you start the day reactive, scattered, responding to everyone else's agenda before you've established your own? Do you hope things will go smoothly and then collapse when they don't? Or do you prepare? Do you ground yourself in principles? Do you imagine difficulty before it arrives? Do you clarify what you control? Because your answer to these questions predicts your productivity more accurately than your to-do list, your calendar, or your goals. Your morning routine, or lack of one, is determining your entire life. Let me paint 2 futures for you. Future 1. You watch this video, feel inspired, maybe even agree with the philosophy, and then tomorrow morning, your alarm goes off and you hit snooze. When you finally wake up, you immediately check your phone. You see emails, messages, notifications. Your nervous system activates. You're reactive before you're even out of bed. You rush through your morning. Arrive at work scattered. Spend the day putting out fires. Wonder why you're exhausted, and go to bed feeling like you accomplished nothing meaningful. And 6 months from now, you're in the exact same pattern. Different days, same chaos. Still busy, never effective. Future, 2. You watch this video, and you do something different. Tonight, you prepare. You put your phone in another room. You put a notebook next to your bed. You set your alarm 15 minutes earlier than usual. And tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, you don't check your phone. You sit. 3 minutes of silence. 5 minutes of premeditatio malorum, imagining your day going badly. 2 minutes of reading your principles. 5 minutes of strategic journaling. And then you start your day. From a grounded, prepared mental state, and when difficulties show up, and they will, you're ready. You respond instead of react. You execute instead of collapse. And 6 months from now, you're different. Not because your circumstances are perfect, but because your relationship with difficulty has transformed. You're no longer surprised by challenges. You're prepared for them. You're no longer reactive. You're strategic. You're no longer scattered. You're focused. And people notice. Your work improves. Your relationships improve. Your entire life improves. Not because you're doing more, because you're doing what matters from a mental state that allows you to actually execute. That's the power of the Stoic morning routine. It doesn't make your life easier. It makes you stronger. And strength compounds. Here's the challenge I'm giving you right now. Before you close this video, do one thing. Set your alarm for 15 minutes earlier tomorrow. Put your phone in a different room tonight. Put a notebook and pen next to your bed. And tomorrow morning, do the routine. Just once. 3 minutes sitting in silence. 5 minutes imagining difficulties. 2 minutes reading a principle you believe in. 5 minutes journaling strategic questions. 15 minutes total. And notice what happens. Notice how your day feels different when you start it from preparation instead of reaction. You don't have to commit to doing this forever. Just commit to trying it once. And let the results speak for themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his Meditations that perfectly captures this entire philosophy. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, what do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do. Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm?" He's asking the fundamental question, are you here to be comfortable or to be effective? Are you here to avoid difficulty or to meet it prepared? Your morning routine answers that question every single day. If you want to continue this journey, if you're ready to build not just a morning routine, but a philosophy that transforms every area of your life, subscribe to Stoic Valor. We're not here for people who want quick fixes and life hacks. We're here for the few who understand that real transformation requires real practice. Every video we create is designed to give you practices, not just ideas. Tools, not just inspiration. That's what we're building here. A community of people who do the work. Drop a comment telling me, what's your current morning routine? Be honest, are you starting your day prepared or reactive? What's the one thing you're going to change tomorrow morning? Your answer might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to finally make the change they've been avoiding. And if you know someone who's constantly overwhelmed, constantly reactive, constantly busy, but never effective, send them this video, not to fix them, but to show them that there's a different way. A way that's been tested for 2,000 years and still works today. Seneca wrote in his letters, begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. That's it. That's the entire philosophy. Your morning is the beginning of a separate life, a new day, a new opportunity. And how you begin determines everything that follows. You can begin reactive, scattered, unprepared, and hope things work out. Or you can begin like Marcus Aurelius, grounded, prepared, ready for whatever comes. The choice is yours. The practices are here. The only question is, are you going to apply them? Not someday, not when things calm down. Tomorrow morning, that's where it starts. That's where transformation lives. See you in the next one.